what is going on in Michigan? An alleged plot by a militia to kidnap the governor to start a civil war? Yeah, this is for real, folks. This is actually happening. I can't believe it. I know you can't believe it. But the FBI on the job, and apparently a bunch of arrests have been made as they were going to go after the governor here of Michigan, was one of the targets of this plot by militia members. Ted Rowlands has more for us tonight.
Court appearances have begun for the accused in the alleged plot to kidnap Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Of the 13 charged, 6 of them are facing terrorism and conspiracy charges. The other 7 are facing charges of providing material support and possessing a firearm during the commission of a felony. The criminal complaint alleges that the 6 men who planned the kidnapping met repeatedly over the summer, hatching a plan to attack the state capitol or the governor's vacation home.
When I put my hand on the Bible and took the oath of office 22 months ago, I knew this job would be hard. But I'll be honest, I never could have imagined anything like this.
The 7 other men are facing state charges and, according to investigators, are part of an extremist group called the Wolverine Watchmen, with plans to target law enforcement and government officials with the goal of starting a civil war.
The individuals in custody are suspected to have attempted to identify the home addresses of law enforcement officers in order to target them, made threats of violence intended to instigate a civil war.
Brothers Michael and William Null are a part of the group of 7 facing state charges. They both took part in a recent armed demonstration in Grand Rapids, protesting Governor Whitmer's coronavirus stay-at-home orders. That's William on stage. The man speaking is Dar Leaf, the local sheriff in Berry County, Michigan, who is now publicly defending the brothers.
It's just a charge, and they say a plot to kidnap. And you got to remember that, are they trying to kidnap? Because a lot of people are angry with the governor, and they want her arrested. So are they trying to arrest, or was it a kidnap attempt? Because you can still, in Michigan, if it's a felony, you can make a felony arrest. And I think it's MCL 764.4 or something like that.
The law he's referring to is this one, 764.16, arrest by a private person, which lists certain circumstances where a citizen can make an arrest.
It doesn't say if you're in an elected office that you're exempt from that arrest.
But it was the brothers and the other 11 men, not the governor, who were taken into custody.
A civil war, really? I mean, I don't get, I get it, but I don't get it. Let's bring in the best team of legal journalists in the business with us. Ted Rowlands, Court TV anchor Julie Grant, and Court TV anchor Michael Ayala. Wow. Ted, so we've got a couple of situations here, right? We've got something going on in federal court, and then we had video, so I know that's not federal court because they never let us in. In state court, we've got a case as well. What exactly is going on between the two different cases?
Basically, it's cut up this way. The 6 that are facing federal charges, with which they have a maximum exposure of life in prison, they are the ones that were actively participating in this detailed plan to get the governor, capture her, take her allegedly to a place in Wisconsin and try her for treason or whatever they were going to try her for. The other 7 are facing state charges. They're part of a militia. They have their exposure is much less, 2 to 20 years, but still it's significant.
And which one of the two is the sheriff kind of standing up for there?
Oh, state all the way, baby. He's, I mean, this guy is, he's obviously he's at that protest and he's with them. And, normally in a situation like this, a public official is like, oh, I kind of knew the guys. Oh, he's backing them up saying, hey, we don't know all the details here. And the governor could have been arrested. A lot of people are mad about it. This, to me, is the scariest part of this whole equation, is that the anger that these people feel, allegedly, is running rampant. And I don't think it's just in the state of Michigan. It is a real, I think, warning for where we are. You dismiss those weirdos. No, these people had the same passion, I think, as any other terrorist group had, and they really wanted to act on it if what the federal government and the state government says is true.
Yeah, and Julie, anti-government groups like that exist. You know, once in a while they bubble up to the top here. And what's happening, I guess, is once all these orders were put in, these shutdown orders, these stay-at-homes, they started to get a little bit busy.
Yeah, it sounds like it, Vinny. But certainly, you know, we've all been affected by the pandemic, but nobody has an excuse to break the law because of it, right? So we know these are allegations at this point, like the sheriff said, just a charge at this point. Everyone in our country is innocent until proven guilty at this point. However, I just have to say, hearing that bit from the sheriff about the suggestion that this could have been a citizen's arrest, to me, Vinny, that idea, quite frankly, is absurd. The idea that there could be a citizen's arrest of a governor is absurd. Private citizens, first of all, are not tasked with determining whether a crime is committed. If these individuals thought there was a crime being committed by the sitting governor, then they should go report it to the FBI, to the Attorney General's office. There are ways to appropriately handle something if that's what they thought. Second of all, private citizens not tasked with keeping the peace, not trained to apprehend criminals. And the whole point of a citizen's arrest is for it to occur in limited circumstances with police involvement. Police, someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I haven't heard any involvement of police being part of this plan to let the governor know this is a citizen's arrest and we're going to call police right now and we want you to cooperate. No, it's my understanding the investigation now shows something far from that, that this was a plot, a sinister, sick plot being carried out by an organization that, it's my understanding, these law enforcement officials are saying this is domestic terrorism that's occurring. So truly frightening, truly disgusting. Bravo to the members of the FBI who infiltrated this plot and were able to stop it before lives were lost.
Yeah, and police were allegedly part of this plot as well, targets of all of this. Law enforcement was. They're going after law enforcement, they're going after the governor. Michael, which is more absurd here? Making a citizen's arrest of the governor because of what's happened, or thinking that you're going to start a civil war and I guess you think you're going to win it?
You know, Vinny, I did a little research and I want to say that the tradition of using citizen's arrest, now let me just say, citizen's arrest has been around since the medieval times. Did a little research, and they still exist in just about every state in the Union, either by common law or it's actually codified in law. People are allowed to do this, and it actually has a pretty strong tradition as part of a political protest. I'll give you an example. 2014, Albuquerque, New Mexico, there were a string of questionable police shootings. So people descended upon the sheriff's office and tried to make a citizen's arrest of the sheriff, saying he was harboring criminals. And again, that was the start of a political battle, and there was actually a political party, La Raza Unida, that grew out of that. Another one in 2016 in Illinois, there was a park district that was running all these different committee meetings and not allowing citizens to have a say. They broke up a meeting and made a citizen's arrest of the park district manager, ended up negotiating, and they ended up getting the ability to speak for like 30 minutes at any meeting they had, so that had a positive outcome. So there is a tradition of using citizen's arrest as part of political protest. Now, this doesn't fall under that, I don't think, but it's not as crazy as you think.
Well, be careful, Michael. You might end up on the defense team if they hear you speaking, right? Ted, let's talk about the evidence here. In the federal case, my understanding is they had an insider informant, like they always do. They had an agent go in and meet some of these folks, like they always do. And they probably have a series of audio recordings, probably video recordings as well.
Exactly. Yeah. In early 2020, this bubbled up online and they were able to get into this group. And we don't know the details on how they get in, but they established an informant according to the complaint. So that person has given them the audio and I'm not sure about video, but they do mention in the complaint audio of these meetings. There was a meeting held in Ohio. There was a meeting where the specifics of what they wanted to do came out. And in that meeting, there was talk of putting a bomb underneath a bridge near the governor's vacation home so that could divert police that could go in, grab the governor, take her to Wisconsin to some sort of remote area and try her there. All of this caught on audio tape. It sounds like a very strong case when you read the complaint.
Yeah. But Julie, I always approach these things and say, okay, let's just put the brakes on for just 1 second, because I've seen cases in the past involving the FBI when they've broken up alleged terrorist plots. And a lot of times, the allegations from the attorneys for these defendants of terrorist plots is that, you know, there's someone who's kind of like teetering with the idea. Maybe they latch onto them on social media, and then it's the informant who is kind of egging the person on. And it's the informant who is introducing and ramping everything up. That would be my only caveat here. It may not be the case, but I've seen that as the defense to these types of FBI investigations before.
Sure. You know, that's a great point, Vinny. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see something like that raised here. I mean, certainly these charges are fairly serious. And so thankfully, no one's life was lost. Thankfully, no violence occurred, thankfully. But when there is a plan that seems to be so well orchestrated and thought out and these substantial steps taken in furtherance of it, you can bet that the feds and the state officials are going to be going at these individuals hard. And so, you know, we hear a lot about theories of entrapment, and that's certainly when someone is convinced to do something they wouldn't otherwise be predisposed to doing. And sometimes we hear about that with undercover law enforcement in cases and trying to convince someone to do something. And so I'll be curious to see what comes out in terms of those recordings. And the proof will be right there in what was said or what was seen from the individual who was the confidential informant wearing the wire, catching some of that on tape. But certainly these defense attorneys are going to have their hands full with this one, because it's made national news. Now, I mean, all sorts of things are coming out of this, and fingers are being pointed every which direction, and they shouldn't be. You know, these are about individuals who are facing allegations, and only an individual is responsible for their own actions.
Yeah, Michael, the other thing with these types of investigation is, you know, when do you pull the plug, right? Because they're monitoring them all along. How far do you let them go? And, you know, you've got to keep everybody safe, including your undercover, your informant, but also the targets of all of this. You've got to keep safe. So this had to be a big operation, because they got to keep eyes on all these guys. Because if you've got police officers who are targets, and they're getting addresses, and the governor and everything else, you have to be really careful.
Yeah, I think a lot of times in these types of investigations, they try to let them go as far as they possibly can without putting people in danger, because the more evidence you have, the more overt acts towards the ends of whatever their plot is, the better off the prosecution is. So by stopping it when they did, I think what that tells us is that they thought that this was very serious, and these guys were going to go ahead and do what they said they were going to do. I mean, a lot of these groups, sometimes they, blow a lot of smoke, and they're talking a lot of this, but they're not necessarily thinking about moving forward. But I think this group was relatively serious, because if I read the facts correctly, at least one of the informants was part of the group and then went to the police because he knew that this was getting too serious. So I think we have a very serious case on our hands.
Ted, the other part of this is I think we'll learn a lot more about at least part of this, because it's in state court. You know, the stuff in federal court, we may or may not find out much up until the point of trial, if there is a trial. But in state court, we could have a preliminary hearing. We could have some openness, some transparency, where we'll understand a little bit more about what allegedly happened here.
Yeah, and you have 7 defendants in state court with presumably 7 different attorneys and possibly 7 different proceedings. And you've got the sheriff and people like him, like-minded people that I'm sure are going to come out of the woodwork here defending them. It's just one of those. We're going to have to wait and see what there is, but there seems to be much less evidence against the 7 that are facing the state charges than the federal charges. But to your point, we'll learn a lot more about what's going on in state court.
Unbelievable stuff. Ted Rollins, Julie Graham, Michael Ayala, thank you so much. Appreciate it.